All right, let's talk about something that many of us have experienced, that mandatory sexual harassment training at work. But we're going to look at it from a fresh perspective today, not just as some corporate checkbox, but as a real tool for building a workplace that's genuinely better, safer, and, yeah, even more productive. Okay, let's get into it. So let's just start with the question that's probably on your mind. You sit through the videos, you click through all the slides, but is any of it really making a difference? Is it actually changing how people behave? It's a totally fair question, and one we need to explore, because when this training is done right, it is so, so important. And here's exactly why it matters so much. This is not some small niche problem. Sexual harassment is a massive issue that cuts across every single industry you can think of. It impacts people's well-being, it can derail careers, and it really damages the health of an entire company. The stakes here are just incredibly high. To really wrap our heads around this, we have to start with the law. I mean, before we can even talk about building a fantastic culture, we first need to get why this training is a requirement to begin with. And the bedrock for all of this is Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. This was a landmarked piece of federal law that basically prohibits employment discrimination, based on race, religion, sex, and so on. And over the years, the courts have made it crystal clear. Sexual harassment is considered a form of sex discrimination. That's where it all begins. So legally speaking, harassment gets broken down into two main types. The first is quid pro quo. It's Latin for this, for that. A classic terrible example is a manager offering a promotion in exchange for a date. The second type is a hostile work environment. This is where the conduct is so bad or happens so often that it just creates this intimidating, abusive atmosphere for people trying to do their jobs. And listen, it's not just federal law. A lot of states have their own rules on top of that. For instance, in Connecticut, the law gets very specific. It mandates 2 hours of training for employees. That just goes to show you how serious this is, that legislatures are putting concrete numbers and requirements on the books. And what happens if you just ignore these laws? Well, it can get really bad, really fast. We're talking about expensive civil lawsuits, being ordered to pay back pay, huge damages, and you can even have a court come in and force you to rewrite your company policies. The bottom line is, compliance isn't really optional. Okay, so we've covered the legal baseline. But really great training, effective training, is about so much more than just not getting sued. It's about moving past this idea of just checking a box and actually trying to achieve something real. And this right here shows the two different ways you can think about it. On one side, you've got a compliance culture. Here, the only goal is to do the absolute bare minimum to avoid liability. But on the other side, you have a respect culture, and that is a whole different ballgame. The focus is proactive. It's about genuinely caring for your employees' well-being and creating an environment that feels positive and safe for everybody. When a company really aims for that respect culture, the benefits are real and they just build on each other. It all starts with an improved culture, right? People feel safer, they feel more focused, and that leads directly to better productivity. And what happens when people feel valued and safe? They stick around, so your employee retention gets a huge boost. And all of that together, well, that's the best kind of risk management there is. And that really brings us to the number one goal. It's not about knowing what to do after harassment has already occurred. The main point of all this, the primary goal, is prevention. It's about stopping it from ever happening in the first place by setting clear boundaries and building a real culture of respect. So we know the goal is prevention. We know we want a culture of respect. But that's the big question, right? How do we actually get there? What does training that really works look like when you put it into practice? A truly effective program pretty much boils down to these 4 things. 1, it has to be interactive. So think role-playing and actual discussions, not just sitting there watching a boring video. 2, the content has to be customized so it's relevant to your specific workplace. 3, it needs to be an ongoing thing, not some one-and-done event that's forgotten by next week. And 4, and this is so critical, it needs real, visible support from the very top of the company. This all sounds pretty good, doesn't it? So why do so many of us walk out of these training sessions feeling like it was a complete waste of time? Why does the message so often just fall flat? Well, the reasons training fails are basically the exact opposite of what makes it work. You get low engagement when people feel like it's just a chore. The content feels totally irrelevant when it's some generic one-size-fits-all video that has nothing to do with their actual job. And if it's just a single event with zero follow-up and leaders who don't seem to care, the message is going to disappear almost instantly. Now, one of the most powerful strategies to come out of all this is the idea of bystander intervention. This is a huge deal because it shifts the burden away from just the victim. It's not all on them to speak up. Instead, it empowers everyone to recognize when something's not okay and teaches them how to safely step in. It creates a culture of collective responsibility. So, as we wrap this up, let's come back to that main idea. The real goal here isn't just about following the law. It's about consciously and together building a better workplace culture. And that leaves us with one last thing to think about. Whether you're a leader or a part of the team, what role will you play in making that happen?